Hey, good evening, everybody. We have about 2 minutes before we are due to start. I just thought I'd fire up the stream a little bit early just to make sure everything works at this end. Looks like we've got a few people online, so thanks for joining. Hopefully, we'll get a few more join in a while. Um, and that is one of the reasons you fire up the stream early because as you can hear there, I've actually got a monitoring system taking place that's running about 10 seconds behind the actual stream itself. So that makes life a little complicated if you've got the volume on. Okay, let me bring up this presentation, which is where we're going to start, and hopefully we will start in just a few moments. We'll just give an hour, a couple of seconds, an hour, 2 minutes or so before this starts. Seem to be losing people on the stream. Not too sure why. Oh, one's come back. Jolly good. Yes, we are in San Diego. It's a pretty warm evening here. We've had a pretty hot day. It's almost been in triple digits. The first time we've had some hot weather here since the smoke and the fires that really kept our temperatures down. And that weather has now changed. The skies have cleared, and obviously that allows me to do this live streaming event this evening. So we just got another minute or so before 9, and then I'll kick off. We've got quite a bit of stuff to hopefully go through this evening, and hopefully you'll find it entertaining, and it should be a good evening. I'll explain what we're going to see. We're going to see shortly. The chat window is open. I see that we've got Patrick on board and Rob on board. Yafe's out there. If you guys want to just drop on the chat window where you're from, it's always nice that people know where you're from. We had Ollie last week sign in from Germany for the live stream, but I don't think Ollie's going to be on board. Oh, and I got low audio here, so let me just change that. Is that a little better, Rob? Rob, is that better? Uh, Okay. I can certainly hear the feedback in my headset, so I'm presuming that it's okay. But I can always talk up a little bit. Anyway, let me start with the live stream now. We've hit 9 o'clock. My name is Gary Hawkins. One of the things I like to do is public outreach programs, and I've been involved with electronically assisted astronomy now for about 2 years, and that's the primary way that I do outreach with the San Diego Astronomy Association. I do this little presentation at the beginning just to sort of set the scene, not only for the people that are actually participating live, but also for those that watch the recording after it's posted to YouTube. So I'm located about 15 miles north of and you can probably see the arrow on the screen here. I'm located about 15 miles north of the main part of the city of San Diego. I'm in Bortle 8 conditions here, far from ideal for astronomy. But I think as you will see this evening as we go through this presentation or through the EAA part of it, EAA can allow you to overcome high levels of light pollution, as hopefully we'll demonstrate. Um, The setup that I'm actually using tonight is not the one that was in the picture that was associated with the link. This is a slightly different scope. The picture did, in fact, show a C6, as some people pointed out. What I'm actually using tonight is a C8 that is being used actually only for about the third time. I purchased this C8 last Friday from a guy called Dave, who's local to me and may well be on the stream in a few moments. And that's what we're going to be using. It's obviously a C8 8-inch aperture Cassegrain, Smith Cassegrain, which I've got the initials the wrong way around for, but c'est la vie. Behind the actual scope itself, I've got a Celestron 0.6 focal reducer to basically shorten the focal length of the telescope, and also widen the field of view, and also bring the f down from f10 to 6.3. The imaging camera that I'm using this evening is a 9 megapixel imaging camera that I'll mention more about in a couple of minutes. I do have a filter in the optical chain. It's an Optolong CCD CLS filter, so it's a UV IR cut and also light pollution filter. So that's in the optical chain. I have an e-finder that we will see some images from that you can see mounted on the top rail there of the C8, and everything is supported on a AVX mount. Kind of a tired AVX mount. This one's been around a few years. In fact, I had to rebuild the declination thing only the axis only a couple of days ago. It is getting a bit tired, but it works fine for EAA. We are primarily going to be using a program called SharpCap tonight for image processing. And for those of you that are not familiar with SharpCap, what that basically allows you to do is it does the camera control, it pulls in individual images, it combines those with a flat and a dark. The dark removes essentially hot pixels, and the flat image is used to compensate for sensitivity variations across the frame of the camera. And then those images are stacked. Once a sufficient number of images are stacked, you can do some final processing, and that's what gives you the end image that we're going to be seeing here in near real time. I don't do any post-processing of the images that I generally put up. Well, I don't do any post-processing of the images that I put up on the EAA forum board. Everything is saved directly from SharpCap, and you'll see me doing that throughout the evening. The hardware I've kind of mentioned. I think I've picked up all of the hardware elements. I'm running 2 laptops this evening. The main laptop is a HP i3 core laptop. That's running basically all the software packages that you see on the right hand side of the graphic there. I do have a Snapdragon based laptop as well that's running YouTube currently, so that I can actually see the stream and your comments in the chat box window, because it's just too many windows for me to try and keep track of on the one machine. In terms of software, I'm running Celestron CPWI for mount control. I'm using SharpCap Pro for the image processing. I do briefly use All Sky Plate Solver to allow me to do my first alignment point. I find the plate solver, it saves a lot of looking through telrads and stuff like that. I use Carte de Ciel as the Stellarium type sky map package, and that through the ASCOM drivers communicates directly with the Celestron CPWI package. I also have Stellarium running in the background. I'm using OBS for video streaming, and while I don't expect to use it this evening, I often use Astro for an online placeholder and Wikipedia for information about the targets I'm looking at. So that kind of gives you an idea of the hardware and software that I've got running this evening. And this can even be can either be run from the house as it is, my backyard, or this is a completely portable setup. As long as I've got a decent amount of power available to me. The store is about 40 watts continuous, so I do actually need quite a large battery or an actual hardwired power source to keep this running for any period of time. Okay, so today's session, as I've already mentioned, we're going to be running at f6.3. The focal length of the scope with the reducer is 1311 millimeters, and that gives me a field of view of almost exactly half a degree. I'm going to be taking 15-second subs, and it's those subs that we're going to be stacking in order to get our picture. I usually present for about 90 minutes, so we'll probably go through to about 10:30. I've got a bottle of water here. Hopefully that will keep the voice going. And as I said, there is about a 10-second delay from when I speak. Well, actually, there's about a 5-second delay from when I speak to when you hear it. And then by the time you've kind of typed something back in, that takes about another 5 seconds to appear on YouTube. So if you do ask questions, and I do suggest that you do ask questions, please bear in mind that there is a 10-second delay in the process. As we go through the evening, I do have a target list that I kind of already penned out, but if you do have a request for a particular target, please let me know. The only thing to bear in mind is that I have a very, very limited field of view, as you'll kind of get an idea as we go through the evening here. I can basically only see between 0 degrees and 120 degrees, so north to southeast, and I can see nothing 30 degrees below 30 degrees in azimuth. And I typically don't cross the meridian because I've got all my calibration points for the mount control software on one side of the meridian, which is the east side, and that's typically where I'm going to stay this evening. If I go onto the west side, I'm probably going to get a pointing error that's such that I'll actually miss the target I'm trying to get to. Okay, and as I mentioned before, as I came in and started there, I am a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association. Unfortunately, our outreach program has taken a huge hit this year with COVID, and there's not many ways that we can do outreach at the moment. So because it's my interest, I've gone online along with a number of others who are pretty active on the Cloudy Nights forum board in the EAA section. Okay, so yeah, and you can find us on YouTube and Facebook, all the usual social media places if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the club. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. So I'm going to close that down. I am going to close that down. And I've got all my software packages up and running at the moment. I am going to show you the area of the sky that we're going to be looking at. So here, this is CPWI for those who are not familiar with it. It's the mount control software that Celestron put out. It's actually quite good as a mount control software piece of package. It's not so great as a for finding targets and stuff, which is why I use another sky map in the background. I can basically, as I said, see anywhere from north above 30 degrees all the way through to about southeast. And I can get around as far as south, but as you'll see, I've actually got a couple of palm trees in the way here, so I kind of hit the targets as they go through the palm trees. And so I'm going to be looking at this area of the sky this evening. And as you can see, I've already put in a number of calibration points, some of which have already rolled over the meridian because I actually set my calibration points about an hour ago. So we're going to be looking in this area of the sky. and we are going to be using Carte de Seal, which I mentioned earlier, and this is my version of Carte de Seal. As you can see, the meridian is very important to me, so I have it outlined in a very heavy grey line. I also have all the Messier targets in enhanced text so that I can see where they are on the screen. And I've got my color coding here basically set up. Purple is nebulas. I am using, what am I using? I am using green for galaxies, and I think I'm using yellow or orange for clusters. So that kind of helps me identify which targets to go after. Now, I'm not going to be going after some of the larger targets. We can, if you would like to see some of them, like M2 is up at the moment. Because I've actually been imaging over the last couple of nights, and I've looked at quite a few of these targets, so I thought I would go after some other targets, many of which I've not actually seen for the first time, which always makes life interesting. But if you like, we could start with M2 since it's a good globular cluster, and probably a great place to start. So M2 is over in this part of the sky. I can select it through my sky package and command my mount to slew towards it. And my mount is now slewing, as you can see from the target screen going across. Now, what I'm actually going to do here at the moment is I'm actually going to get up. I am going to turn off the outside lights here because those are on currently, so that you could actually, in fact, you could probably see that one of the outside lights was on. I'm going to turn those off so that it's a little darker, and I'm also going to kill the video feed from my webcam so that we can just concentrate on the SharpCap screen and the screens associated with the other software packages. So just stand by for about 30 seconds here as I go and switch those lights off, and I will continue in a few seconds. Okay, I am back, and the next thing I'm going to do is kill that video feed. One of the nice things about the software package that I use for video streaming is that it allows me to actually bring together a whole load of video and audio streams. So I'm now actually going to just turn the video capture off. You'll see that disappear. I'll minimize that back down again, and hopefully in a few seconds I will see on the YouTube video that we just have the main screen, the desktop that I'm using. So we've tracked to M2. I'm going to come across into SharpCap now, which is the program, as I mentioned, that I'm going to use. I've got two instances of SharpCap running. This well, and this is a an excellent example of why I actually have the second instance running. So I have a eFinder that sits on the top of my C8 here, and that basically gives me the big picture look of what I'm pointing at. And as you can see, M2 is actually in the behind the fronds of that palm tree. So we're not actually going to be able to view M2, but this is an excellent example of why I actually use the eFinder in order to allow me to see what's going on. It's perhaps not so essential when I'm actually sitting right next to the telescope as I am this evening, but when I'm running the telescope remotely, it's a pretty critical tool to determine what I can actually see. So that being said, then we will go and find a target that I know is showing, a well-known target, just so that we can get going here. So we'll pick the Dumbbell Nebula M27. And if I come across to my finder scope now, you can see I'm swinging across the sky. And with all luck, I hope that we will not be pointing at a tree. Oh, well, I've managed to do two things wrong so far this evening already. Obviously, since I looked at M27, it's actually crossed the meridian. And that's where I said I didn't want to go. So let me just bring the mount back. And let me go and actually find, maybe third time lucky, and I'll actually go and hit a target that's on the right side of the meridian and not hiding behind a palm tree. Right. All right. Okay, let's do, I think we probably can probably get M15. I think we can probably get M15. Okay. Let's see if we get a bit luckier with M15. If I miss this one, I might as well just pack up and head home. Okay, so as you can see now, we've actually missed the top of the palm tree, which is down here. So we are actually going to manage to get this target. So now we can go across to the imaging camera. And the imaging camera is set for a 15-second exposure. I do have darks and flats already added in. The camera is running. This is a ZWO533 camera. This camera is only available with a cooler. It's actually running at -5 degrees. You don't really need a cooler for EAA because the images are so short, but since I kind of also have some aspirations of playing around with astrophotography, I actually got a camera that would do both. The capture area is just over 3000 by 3000 pixels. It's a 9 megapixel camera. So I am going to clear my live stack. I am going to add the name of the target, and I'm going to clear my live stack again because SharpCap has got this kind of little weird thing about it that you have to type the target name in before you hit the live stack. Okay, and right, so that's good news. So there we have M15. And I'm just going to give this a chance to collect a few frames here while we, before I do any processing, and that gives me a chance to a chance for the image to improve a little bit, and then we'll start improving the image a little bit, and then we'll save it, and then we move on to the next target. It's kind of a it's a fairly straightforward process. I'll briefly explain the imaging controls and stuff like that. M15 is perhaps not as an impressive globular cluster as M2 or M13, but it's a pretty spectacular cluster all the same. You can see that we have already stacked 4 images, so 5 images now, so just about 75 seconds of stacked images. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I can pick my zoom here, which allows me to see the center part of the cluster here, and now I can start using my SharpCap controls, and I typically just use this histogram here. There is another histogram down here that I can use, but once you start using 2 of them, it's kind of like double dipping in the curve stretching thing. It all gets a little bit out of hand sometimes, so I typically tend to just use the one histogram. One of the first things I'll typically do is I'll color balance. You can see that the peaks are a little bit misaligned here. I've got a couple of color balancing tool auto color correctors here, so I'm going to hit the one on the left. That's the one that typically works. Let me just try the one on the right. That didn't seem to, red seems to still be a little bit out of balance here, so I'm actually just going to manually bring the red back a little bit. Okay, so that seems a bit more balanced. And now I've got these three bars here. So this is black level, white level, and mid level. Typically, the white level just stays at the top of the screen all the time. Black level, if I move it this way, everything goes gray. If I move it this way, everything goes black. So typically what I aim for is just to the right hand side of the peak. So we'll put it there for a minute. And then usually then the main thing I'm moving is the midpoint to give me the detail. And what I try and do is get as much detail as I can in the center image and get this area out here as sort of black as possible. I don't really want too much noise kicking around in the image. Obviously, the more frames that I stack, the less noise that I'll have. But I will typically, do that with the histogram controls. Now, one neat thing that I was told about recently was that if I actually press the shift key, if I just move it without the shift key, it moves around pretty quickly. Any one of these particular bars. If I press the shift and move around, I'm now moving my mouse or backwards and forwards a long way, and actually that bar moves quite slowly. So I do this a lot now. So I will press the shift, I'll move this first one, the black level probably to about there, looks pretty good. Now I'm going to move the midpoint. And I'm actually pretty happy with that image already. Let me zoom back out a little bit. 33%. Let's go back down to like 20. Yeah, so that's a pretty decent image, I think, of M15 that we've collected in just while we've been chatting in under 5 minutes. I usually when I'm doing this, I'll usually sit on a target for about 5 minutes before moving on to the next one. So now that I've got my image, I'm pretty happy with it. I just save it. So I will go over to the save side here, and basically I always select the same save mechanism, which is just save exactly as seen, and that drops it off to my capture folder for today, the 18th of September, and it will name it M15, which is why it's important to get the name in at the top in order to do that. Now, I think there were a couple of questions. So Corey was asking, does CPWI have an ASCOM driver? So yes, it does. So once you've got the ASCOM drivers in, you can connect third-party software to CPWI through the ASCOM driver. Yeah, Rob was saying he's got the same problem with trees. If I actually swing the telescope round to the west, I'm literally 8 feet away from the side of the house. So as you can imagine, all we'll see there is brick and windows. Corey was mentioning about the controls and on the zoom controls. And okay, so good evening there, Cesar. Nice to, we've been actually corresponding a lot on cloudy nights in recent days, so great that you could join me for the live stream this evening. And yeah, Jerry, those controls are particularly useful. So that was pointed out to me about a week ago by somebody else on the Cloudy Nights forum and proved pretty good. Right, so now I think we're going to go and do some exploring, and of course this is always a little bit dangerous because many of these targets we're going to try and look at tonight I haven't actually looked at before, so we're either going to get lucky, the equipment's going to handle it, or they may be faint to the point where we don't actually resolve something. So bear with me. If I get too many duds here, I will go back to the larger targets that I know that will work. But since I've already been imaging for a couple of evenings, like I said, I thought I would try and do something a little different. And some of you that have joined me on the live streams before will have seen many of those targets already. So my first target I think I'm going to take a look at this evening is I'm going to go and see if we can actually image the Cocoon Nebula. So I'm going to go out to my sky map. I'm going to type in its IC number. So I found it. I'm going to slew. I'm going to quickly go over to my eFinder, and I'm just seeing black sky with stars, so that's great. And I'm now going to go back to my SharpCap. So the first thing I do is I type in the name of the target. So 5146. The Cocoon Nebula. Interestingly enough, the package that I used for the sky map does not recognize the Caldwell numbers. This target is more commonly known as Caldwell 19, but it does have a complete database of the IC numbers. So let's go there. We need to reset the stack. So I'm going to reset the stack, and now we just wait for the first image to come in and see what happens. And already, I guess with some relief, because I don't think I've imaged the Cocoon Nebula before, you can see obviously that the Cocoon Nebula is pretty much square in the center of the field of view here. Okay, well, we've now got 13 online, so welcome to everybody that is online. If you didn't catch the very beginning of the presentation, it's actually quite a warm evening here in San Diego. I would be surprised if the temperature has dropped below 75. It may even be a little higher. We were almost in triple digits today. The smoke has gone, fortunately, and we're finally back to doing some astronomy again, which is great news. For those of you that again joined late, if you want to just type your location, if that's possible, into the chat window, that just helps me to see where everybody is. My apologies for those in the center and the east of the country, because obviously this is pretty late for you, but unfortunately I have a 5-year-old, and well, it's not unfortunate that I have a 5-year-old, but I have a 5-year-old, and unfortunately that means I can't start till about 9 o'clock. So Corey also said you can also click above and below the RGB sliders to increment the settings by 1 tick. I did not know that. I haven't, to be perfectly honest, read the SharpCap manual. Well, I haven't read much of it. I probably should, because it is actually quite a complex package. But yes, I'll remember that. And okay, so Cesar's in Seattle, and oh great, we got somebody on from Knoxville, Tennessee, which was actually where my daughter was born. She was born in what is it, Tennessee, the big hospital there. Oh God, the name's eluding me. But she was born in the big hospital there in Knoxville. So, and we've got Mike is from California. Okay, so let us see if we can just pull a little bit more information out of this image. We've collected about 2 minutes worth of imaging so far. So again, I'm pressing the shift key. I am going to start by just moving this midpoint in to give me some more detail. And as I pull that across, okay. I'll pick this one up as well. See if I can just. Okay, so a couple of interesting things here. We are seeing the nebula, obviously. It's not the best image in the world, for sure. certainly you can see the outline fairly well. Um, but whenever you're in the position where the black and the mid-level sliders are this close together, it can get a little bit sort of grainy and you start to push things. And you can probably see here, there's probably almost like a reverse vignette on here. Although I do believe there is a dark area around the Cocoon Nebula, and maybe that's what's actually making me say this. But there may be almost a reverse vignette here, which is actually my flat probably overcorrecting a little. It's probably doing a little bit more than I would like it to. But anyway, I think you can see there we have got a reasonably decent image of the Cocoon Nebula. And because we're using let me just bring that back to full. Because we're using a almost exactly half degree by half degree field of view there, you can almost, you can obviously pretty easily work out what its relative size is here. So yeah, not too bad again for about 5 minutes of imaging. So let me save that. Let me just see if I can perhaps go in a little bit and let's just see if we can clean this up maybe a tad before I go save it. It's not the best of images. This is obviously a pretty weak target. And obviously with some of the targets that I'm choosing this evening, they are not the strongest of targets. You would probably need a little bit more, well, you would definitely need a little bit more integration time. I might be able to pull, yeah, I might be able to pull that across, that other slider across a little bit. It's not too bad. I'm fairly pleased with that. It's not what the Astro guys are going to um, get. And as Corey quite rightly pointed out, there is a dark nebula that cradles the Cocoon emission nebula here. So yes, that is kind of giving me that impression there is a bit of vignetting here, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just this particular target. So I'm going to save that. Um, and I am going to move on to the next target. And this one's a favorite of mine. I do image this one quite a bit. So let me go to NGC 6888, which I'm pretty sure is still on the right side of the meridian. Let's go check that. NGC 6888. Okay, need to press enter. Okay, yes, so we're in a good position there, I think. Oh, rats. Wrong again. It's just drifted across the meridian. Man, I guess this is one of the problems of hitting targets that you're perhaps not quite so familiar with. And I must admit, I set everything up a little bit earlier this evening, and so yeah, things have moved in the sky quite a bit since I did that. So let's try another target here, and let's see. Again, I haven't done this target before. It's the Fish Head Nebula, which is fairly well known. It's not exactly probably the brightest of targets. And the one thing I'm struggling with here at the moment is I am struggling to see, and it's maybe because I haven't got the zoom in here, when I select the target with the search tool, I'm struggling to see where the mount is going to go. Obviously, I know where it ends up, but so that's what's causing me to hesitate here. Normally, when I don't actually have a target list, I just go to the relevant target, click on it. So of course I know it's on the right side of the meridian, and go from there. But we're on the right side of the meridian. We're just below Cassiopeia here, and we should be. Let's see if we can see the Fishhead Nebula, which is part of a much larger nebula, which I'm struggling for the name of at the moment. But if, oh, we better check that we're not actually, ooh, I think I might have to allow that one to rise a little bit more. Okay, so once again, we have missed a target, but that one looks like it's coming up. So let me try the elephant's trunk, see if we get more lucky with that one. 1396. Okay. Maybe, maybe not. Yes, I think we should be okay here. So let's go across to my E-finder. That looks like it's going out into the darkness, so that's good. Yeah, so we're fine there. So let's come across to our main camera. Let's just retype that. I see 1396 and enter that. Let's clear the stack and let's see what happens. Let's see if we pick this up. Now, interestingly, until recently, I've actually been using a C6 as my main imaging camera. I borrowed it from a friend. Prior to that, I was actually using a 4-inch refractor, an AR102, but I got a little fed up in the end with the trying to knock the chromatic aberrations down on that all the time, and it never seemed to really give me a crisp focus being a doublet. So I went to the C6, which was a big improvement. And then more recently, I picked up this C8. It's actually quite an old telescope, but it's in beautiful condition. The corrector plate's a little dirty, but the rest of the scope is in beautiful condition, and it doesn't actually seem to affect the performance particularly. And in fact, the previous owner may actually be online. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen Dave's name come up here. So I've been using this. And funnily enough, the field of view is not actually that much difference between the C6 and the C8, because with the C6, I had the camera much closer to the back of the scope, the focal reducer, whereas on this one I've actually gone more for the optimal spacing, and just by almost coincidence the field of views ended up to be very similar. So this is the elephant's trunk, and I am not convinced that we are going to see a lot here. Or actually this is was I on the elephant's trunk? Yeah, I was on the elephant's trunk. Right. Okay. So let's go back here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the trouble with this nebula for this type of field of view is that my field of view is small and the nebula is big. So I am hitting a lot of nebula, but it's very difficult to actually kind of make out the different aspects of the nebula, and so that makes adjusting the color somewhat tricky. And typically I find when the target is like this, it then just becomes difficult to get something that I'm going to be pleased with. And I think just playing around with these controls as I'm doing at the moment, I have a feeling that that is going to be the case here. All right, so we'll move on. And since we're kind of struggling a little bit to get a good rhythm going here, let us go look. Okay, yeah, so that was where I was. Let's go look. Let's go and pick M52. Since that target is pretty close. Usually when I'm doing my own viewing and I'm not live streaming like this, what I will typically do actually is move very slowly through the sky. So I'll typically start out in the region of the sky and just slowly move through the different targets that I've got available to me in that area, and then move on. I'm not one of these people that tends to go from one side of the sky to another. For one thing, I don't have a lot of sky, and for another thing, the mount loses accuracy as soon as I switch across the meridian because of the way it's balanced. I will say that the C8 was considerably more difficult to balance than the C6. And it did take a while to actually get that going on. And Corey actually mentioned there that the Bubble Nebula is right next to 52. So let's go look at 52, and then we'll go look at the Bubble Nebula, because I know that the Bubble Nebula images nicely. So we'll go into 52. Our sky's good. I will put M52 up on my thing. I will reset my stack, and off we go. I'll take a quick drink of water here. Yeah. So M52 is a open cluster. I've imaged this before. You can already see the cluster forming. Yeah, it's interesting tonight with the balance, the color balancing. It's definitely different to last night. This is balancing differently tonight than it did last night, and I'm not sure if that's just because there's either there's definitely less smoke particles in the air. There was possibly still a little bit of crud in the air last night. But yeah, the color balance is not quite set up perfectly here, so I'm probably going to have to go and manually tweak this a little bit. Right, so we're stacking away. We've got 75 seconds worth of images already. Just move in a little bit. As you can see, we have quite a nice representation of that Messier target already. I'll just tweak the sliders a little bit here, get some of that background noise away. Generally, what you find with anytime you're shooting cluster targets, you can. And Mike said put the mic back close to my mouth, so I guess I've got that there now. Anytime you're doing open or globular clusters, it gets much easier because obviously you're looking at points of light as opposed to diffused, and so you don't have to be quite so aggressive with the sliders here. So there's an image of M52 that we've collected in the space of about 2 minutes. That probably isn't going to improve too much over time. And just to your point there, Mike, the reason this headset might be quite as directional is it's actually a headset from a call center. So my guess is it's quite kind of directional. So when I had that drink a few moments ago, I probably didn't quite push it back down into place. But anyway, we've got M52 there, and again, a fairly decent image. So I'll drop that one away, and I'll type in bubble, and we will go find the bubble nebula, and I think I can probably get this one. Yeah, I can get this one on directly from CPWI. CPWI is not great. A lot of, like, for instance, if I type in Pelican Nebula, for instance, or Pac-Man Nebula, it won't get those. So it is kind of a bit limited. It also doesn't have any of the IC numbers as well, which is kind of painful. Anyway, we'll go to the target. And as Corey said, and you can, well, I can tell because I hear the scope moving, and you probably would have seen it had the dialog box not been up there, but that is just shifted the scope across just fractions of a degree. So let us go and reset the stack, and hopefully we'll get a decent image of the bubble nebula. Yes, first image was already pretty good, so you can tell, you can usually tell fairly quickly whether you're going to be in luck or not, and I can already see the outline of the top quadrant of the bubble there, and we'll just again give it a few moments to form away and stack a little bit more, so that we can drop that noise level down, and it'll look nicer. So the other thing I am using, sometimes, I don't use it all the time. I do run an app on the phone as well, just to give me information about targets. Um, the bubble nebula that we're seeing here is Caldwell 11, which is NGC 7635. Again, well, obviously we didn't move much, so we're still close to Cassiopeia. Or we're actually in the constellation of Cassiopeia, and this is a visual magnitude of 11. So this is kind of quite a weak target. It's not a particularly big target either, and it was one of the reasons that I kind of, I'm quite happy. I've got a focal length, an effective focal length here of 13. So 1311 millimeters. You'll see a lot of people post that say that, EAA, you don't really do much above 700 millimeters. And I understand why, because there are a lot of big targets out there that I can't image. But there's also a lot of small targets that you can actually see a lot better. So, I think it's kind of horses for courses, really. And I can easily mount a small triplet on the top of my C8 here with an R camera on it, and I can do the wide field view through that without any problem at all. Or I can just, get a regular camera lens and do the same thing. So I can always do that wider field imaging if I want to, but I do like the fact that I can, get in up close and personal to a lot more objects. And we're actually going to go after, in a little while, we're going to go and see if we can image, and I've never done this, so we're going to go and see if we can image the Deerlick group, which is NGC 7331. And those are pretty small galaxies. So we'll see. But we've got the bubble nebula forming here, so let's just take a look here. We've lost quite a bit of image just because of the way our sliders are at the moment, so I'm going to pull this one across a little bit, which will allow the bubble to start forming. Pull it across a little bit more. Okay, yeah, so that's not too bad. Now I'm going to bring the midpoint across, which will kick it even harder here. And welcome to Paul as well, who is listening. Paul is local to me in San Diego. So welcome, Paul. Nice to have you on board. I just got a text message. I'm not sure if you heard the text, but he's on board here. So yeah, so this is the Bubble Nebula. Let me drop back a little bit. Yeah, we can see the bubble, kind of quite nice, and we can see the surrounding nebula. At the moment, and I think the sky conditions are still a little bit, they're definitely not where they were before the fires. Um, I have picked up somewhat better image of the bubble nebula than this, but this is not too bad. Again, I mean, considering we're doing this real time, we're not sitting for hours, doing capturing and then processing. If you want to do public outreach, again, in less than 5 minutes, we've got a fairly decent rendition of the bubble nebula for everybody to look at. And typically what I do when I'm doing outreach, SharpCap has this nice feature that if you're running a second screen, which I invariably do have, um, uh, you can actually project the image onto that second screen, and all the controls then are on the first screen. So everybody gets to see the image in in a nice large format. Of course, the only problem with this type of display is that for all the guys that are trying to do visual, I've got multiple computer screens going here. And to be perfectly honest, I could have left the garden outside lights on here and it would have made little to no difference to the imaging quality that I'm getting here. But obviously, if you're a visual guy and you're trying to get a little bit of dark adaptation going there, it does not. It does not work well. But fortunately, my guys and actually Dave, who is our president of the club, is actually online at the moment. Thanks for joining me, Dave. I know you're up at the Pala Resort this evening. I wonder if the girls are at a show or something, but it's nice of you to join me this evening. Um, you know, um, it's I think I've lost my train of thought, but anyway, yeah, pretty pleasing image for something of around 5 to 6 minutes, and yeah, I was talking about dark adaptation. So, and Dave is kind of interesting. I actually like to be out with Dave. Dave has a great 16-inch Dob, and it's kind of interesting to compare the two things side by side. And I'm sure Dave will attest to the fact actually that my EAA has come a long way from the early days of when we were looking at the Veil. Um, Oh, the show is here. Oh, okay. And my EAA has come a long way since the days when I first started off with the Explore Scientific AR102. Okay, so I think we've done the bubble. Let's save that. And as you can see here, it's typically about 5 minutes worth of imaging that I require. So 10 to 15 targets an hour is well within reach if you really want to, just plow through targets. And yeah, you can do a good deal of viewing with this type of setup, and it's pretty pleasing. So let's go and try something. Let's go and see if we can see a galaxy. We'll chance our arm again. I'm kind of feeling lucky after I got the Bubble Network Nebula and M52. Well, M52 is an easy target, but let's go and chance our arm here on a galaxy. And again, this is where I'm struggling. Okay, well, I'll just watch where this thing slews. Okay, so that's slewing in the right direction. Okay, so I got it here. So the question is, are we going to be in a good spot? So let's have a look. All right. Well, we can certainly see the sky. That's my neighbor's roof over on the far side. I think that's mine. Nope, actually, it's the top of one of the the palm trees. So I'm above that, so we should be able to do. This is the starburst galaxy, IC10. So let's see if we get lucky here. And again, I have not imaged this galaxy, so I do not know. Um, I do not know how well this is going to show. Okay, so Paul texted me and said, "How does imaging work during a minor earthquake?" Well, that's a great question, Paul, since we live in San Diego and we certainly do get the ground rattle fairly regularly here. I would imagine, and I haven't actually experienced a little shake here while I've been imaging, but it doesn't help. It certainly does not help. It's likely to throw everything completely off to the point where I would probably need to reset the mount and everything. And for those of you that attended last week's, I think actually it wasn't last week, it was the second live stream I did, which must have been about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 now because of the fires. You will know that at the beginning of that, my entire system failed, and so I had to completely reset the mount. And for those that were online, you watched me struggle for 20 minutes to realign the mount, but we got there, so it wasn't too bad. Now I can see the galaxy, but it's pretty faint. It's right here. And I am not too hopeful this is going to show particularly well, but let's see what we can do. We might get a little lucky as we draw a few frames in here. So let me, first of all, pull my black level across. Okay, and now let me enhance the detail. Yeah, this is going to be a struggle. Yeah, I can see this is going to be a real struggle. We'll give it another little bit of time here. But yeah, the galaxy's right in here. But as you can see, if I mean, I know from just experience, if I've not got a semi-decent image on the screen after 2 minutes of imaging, it's not going to be much better after 5. Usually, it usually takes 2 to 3 images to know that you're going to be good to go or not. Those first 3 images are the ones that really knock down the noise. Although I mean, mathematically that's true, but the more images you get, the less and less effect there is. But yeah, normally if you don't get something good within the first couple of images, then you're going to be stuck. But yes, I think I'm going to struggle with this. I'm probably not going to stay on this for very long. But yes, here's the galaxy in here. Obviously, if you were, if you got a poor quality image like this of if you've got a poor quality image like this of any particular object, and you're not even sure that you're in the right place, you can always then run this through a plate solver to determine that you're on target. I mean, that is definitely the galaxy. It's just not a particularly good image. Yeah, so we're not going to get anything out of this that's decent. So I'm going to let this one go. And let me just answer a couple of questions here. Jerry said vibration suppression pads can handle the vibrational quakes. Maybe. Not really too sure. I don't actually run vibration pads under this rig, but they might help. Yeah, Jerry said UV-IR filters don't do any favors when shooting galaxies. Yes, and actually that's an interesting point, Mike. Is it Mike or Jerry? I'm not 100% sure. I'll go for Mike. It must be Mike. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually. And one of the things that I am going to start playing around with, particularly for galaxies, is imaging probably just in the red and upwards part of the um, spectrum, and going into the near IR, which the ZWO cameras tend to be sensitive up to about 1100 nanometers. So that's something that I've heard may help. The problem, of course, is that with any of these filters, you're cutting out a lot of light in the first place, and of course that's kind of going against what you're trying to achieve with EAA, which is fast imaging. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I got that. Um, but yes, so you're right. The galaxies don't show that well, although obviously I mean I can swing on to M31 here probably in a few moments, and you'll see that shows up reasonably well. Um, Mike's Corey said, yeah, it's challenging, very diffuse, low surface brightness. Yeah, and that's why we're struggling here. So I'm not going to leave that up any longer. And like I said, tonight was a little bit of an experiment because I am trying to pull a few targets out that I've not actually looked at. So let's go look at a planetary nebula that should be plenty bright enough, but my guess is it's going to be really small, and I have not imaged this one either. So we are really chancing our arm this evening. It's in the right place, so let's slew them out. And the eFinder idea here, this came from Corey. I watched one of Corey's EAA presentations probably a couple of months ago now, and he was using an eFinder, and I thought, yes, that's definitely something that I've got to put on my rig. And I think for presentational, from a presentational perspective, it just allows you to see, or you to get a feel of some of the challenges that I'm facing here in this particular environment. But it's also a very useful tool for alignment and stuff like that. So we are on this, right, so we are on NGC 7662. And I am going to clear that previous stack, and let's see what comes up here. Can you show your alignment tab settings was the question. Oh yeah, there we go. Can you show your alignment tab settings? My alignment tab settings. I presume you're talking about CPWI, Cesar, and these are the alignment points that I set up earlier in the day, probably about 2.5 hours ago now, because as you can see, a whole number of those have now gone on to the other side of the meridian, which I won't image on, that are determining the alignment correction model for my scope, and they get you reasonably close. As you can tell, we're getting probably within about 0.1 of a degree, 0.2 of a degree of most of our targets. So if that was the question, hopefully I've answered it. Oh, in SharpCap to the right of the histogram tab. Oh, okay. Let's go into SharpCap. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yes. So there you are. So I'm doing alignment. I've got my minimum star width set to 3. I think as long as it's finding sort of 10 to 15 stars, it's quite happy in terms of being able to go from one frame to the next and do the alignment. I've seldom dropped this. It is actually giving me a hot pixel warning, which is interesting. Oh, and I've got the digital gain up. I never used to do that, and I changed that a way back for some reason, and I think I was struggling one evening to do alignment, and I found that helped a little bit. And obviously I've left it there. So let's zoom right into this target, because obviously it's a pretty small target. And let's see if we can control this a little bit. Um, Actually, yeah, here we go. All right. Now you can see this is a bright target, but we're beginning to see some detail now. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. And okay, this is kind of pretty much at 300% zoom. You can start to see the pixelation on the image. This is a tiny target. It's called the Blue Snowball. Um, but it's kind of one of the reasons that I actually do, under certain circumstances, like the longer focal length. That being said, there is a guy locally to me. He uses a Razi yeah, Raza, right? RASA 11. Um, and that's obviously wide field of view, 400 millimeter focal length, and some of his wide field stuff is absolutely stunning. He is on the Cloudy Nights board by the name of Astro Jedi, and in fact, he was the previous owner of this of the AVX mount I'm using. Yeah, it's kind of, as Paul would say, an English saying, and I am originally from the UK. Horses for courses, right? If you want to do wide field stuff, you can be doing, you can be using a better setup. If you want to go for slightly smaller targets, this is perfect. And yeah, so this is the Blue Snowball Nebula, Caldwell 22. It's a planetary nebula in Andromeda. And since we're probably close to Andromeda, we might just drop down onto M31, just for a quick look. Um, and Yeah, it's uh, it's kind of quite a popular target, albeit very small. And if you actually take a look at a higher resolution image of this nebula, you will actually see that we're pulling the required detail out of it, right? You can just about make out the central star. You can certainly pretty clearly see the this ring, which is very prominent on better pictures. And then there is kind of a brighter, and that perhaps that's not showing quite as well. Maybe I can just tweak this a little bit and perhaps improve it. But yeah, just you could just see a little bit of lightning on here. But again, considering that we're imaging something in less than 5 minutes, pretty good. And the angular size of this is really small. I can't actually find out exactly what it is from the information sheet here, but it's a really small target, as you can see. I'm zoomed way in, and if I pull back here, there it is. And again, I guess testament to the pointing accuracy when you've got this many alignment points going. I didn't miss that target by much. Okay, so that one was pretty successful. So I will go and save that one. I got the right number. Yep. So let me go and save that. All right. Okay, so let us. Maybe I am chancing my arm again here, but I did want to go and take a look at this this evening. So apologies if this does not work, but I did want to go and see if I could see the Deerlick galaxy group, which is 4 galaxies. My guess is I'm going to run into exactly the same problems I did before, but if you don't try, you won't find out. So let's give it a shot. And okay there, Rob. Well, thanks for joining. I'm glad you were able to spend some time with us this evening. I hope you enjoyed the live streaming. It's always fun to do, and it's nice to still be able to do some outreach, even when we're struggling with this pandemic. All right. So yes, I'm just on the right side of the meridian for that. So let's go swing over there. All right. Yep, where our sky is clear. And you will see here, you'll see the red and blue flecks here. These are hot pixels on my 244. If I use my 244 MC for imaging, I definitely have to run with a dark to get rid of these hot pixels. Otherwise, it's very annoying. The 533 MC, and you can run without a dark frame at all. It just doesn't have hot pixels at the moment. I'm not sure whether that's because it's a relatively it's a new chip, but it seems to be a really good camera. So welcome back, Curtis. We've been bouncing around a few targets here. We just finished the Blue Snowball Nebula, and we're now actually going to see if we can image the Deer Lick galaxy group, which I'm a little, we may not be able to do, but we'll give it a shot. And not far away from this is also the Stevens Quintet. But my guess is if I get problems with one, I'm probably going to get problems with the second one. What I might do here, if I can't get lucky here, I might, oh, well, there's one of them. Okay, well, that's promising. I might actually, I might be able to get away with doing a little bit of, I might be able to push this exposure time up, because if I look at my stars here, let's just zoom in and take a look at my stars towards the edge. Yeah, they're a tiny bit elongated. I may not be able to get away with much there, but let's... Okay, I've got one of the galaxies, so that's good. Now, the question is, what else will we see? I'm probably going to need to bring this up. Let's zoom in. Okay, so there's one of the galaxies. I'm guessing that this is another one of the galaxies. Okay, let's just let that settle for a few moments and see if that improves a little bit. But I think, and again, I'm not super familiar with this target. I have not actually imaged it before, but since it was up and since I would hope to show you a variety of targets, I thought I'd give it a go. So let me just take a look on, let's see what we got here. So we're seeing the largest of the galaxies here, and there are a number of galaxies that sit to one side of it, and I'm guessing that that's one of them. That definitely looks like it could be one, but I'm not really seeing the others. This is certainly the much larger, it's the large one of the group. And like many of the targets we've been looking at tonight, all of these were discovered in the late 1700s, either by Messier or Herschel or so forth and so on. This one's actually credited to Herschel. Um, and it's at a distance of some 49 million light years. Pretty long way away. And obviously we're, peering back into history here. We're seeing these images, obviously this galaxy as it was that many million years ago, since that's how long it's taken for the light to get to us. The description here says the galaxy is about 30,000 light years across, and as you can see, it is a spiral galaxy. The core is somewhat burnt out here at the moment, but you can just about see the spiral arms here. You can see where, given time, the spiral arms will begin to form a little bit. So let's go in a little bit on this particular target. Yeah, I mean, here you can see quite clearly there's a dark lane here between the spiral arms here. This galaxy is not quite flat, but it's certainly not side on like a dinner plate. So it's showing a pretty oval shape. Let me see if I can do just a little bit of adjustment here. Yeah, if we now, of course, we are going to sacrifice background noise here, but let's just do that for the moment. Let's balance that. No, that didn't help. That didn't help either. Okay, so I'm going to have to manually bring the color balance back. Let's bring that back. Let's just pull that in there. And again, this is where maybe a infrared filter or being able to image up into the infrared might help a little bit. And in fact, even though the color on this particular image is now not great, in fact, it's all over the place. It does actually, we're beginning to see a bit more definition here. Let me first of all turn that reticule off because I don't need that. Now, actually, we've kind of, we've brought the core down a little bit. And yes, Dave, I am near the Stevens Quintet, and I will. I'll go over there in a few moments, see if we can get that. But you can start now to actually see a little more detail here. You can see the spiral arms. You can see the dark lanes between the spirals. There is a little bit of detail in there now. I'm not sure why my color is so badly balanced here. Let me see if I can correct some of this because this is just horrible. Now I'm wondering if I actually... Oh, okay. So yes, so that was what Cesar was talking about earlier on. I can just up and down increment it. Okay, so that's good to know. Okay. Let's bring my saturation down a bit as well. So yeah, again, kind of struggling to get a great image here, but there's definitely some detail there. And really, considering we've got a target that is 49 million miles away, and I am looking at Bortle skies, we're not doing too badly. Dave said, by the way, the electronic assist is great. Yes, I do. I love the eFinder. It's been a really good ad. Always been visual with a passing fancy for AP. Okay, so actually this is, I think, showing even better on the YouTube channel than it is on my screen. The YouTube channel seems to have knocked some of that noise down a little bit. But, we can see the galaxy there. It's not too bad. Let's drop back a little bit. Let's come in about here. Yeah, galaxy here, another one up here, one here. So yeah, again, this is a great image, but considering how weak a target we're looking at from a magnitude perspective, I think we've done a reasonable job in 7 minutes of imaging. I mean, clearly, if you wanted, an AP type image, you're going to have to image this thing for hours, and you're going to have to take substantially longer subs. But on balance, I think I'm okay with that. All right, so let's save that so that I've at least got a record. And then I will go to the Stevens Quintet and see if we get lucky there as well. All right, so the Stevens Quintet is NGC 18. And I must admit, for me, this is kind of unusual. I am not the type of person that usually sits down. Okay. I'm not usually the type of person that will actually sit down and work out what targets I'm going to hit before I come out and do a session. So for me, this is kind of a little unusual what we're doing tonight. Normally, like I said, what I tend to do is crawl across the sky slowly. And I had seen pictures of the Bubble Nebula, but I'd never imaged it. And I just happened to click on one of the NGC ones, and that was the first time I'd seen the Bubble Nebula, and I was really pleased with that. That I think that nebula shows really well under EAA. Okay, so we are across at our target. We got our name up there. We are resetting our stack, and let's see what comes up for the Stevens Quintet. Okay, so Corey said some of the small background galaxies are 290 million light years distance. Yes, which is probably why I'm struggling so much to see them. And already I can see that we're going to at least see something here of this quintet. I can see where the 4 galaxies are on the screen. Again, these are some distance away. Let me just bring up the facts and figures. And for this, I think I'm using Sky Safari just to provide me with a little bit of additional information while I'm chatting to you guys, because I can't keep all of this stuff in my head. Let's have a look. So NGC 7318 is the Stevens Quintet. Oh, and for some reason I'm not finding it, unless I wrote that incorrectly down. Anybody know what the Stevens Quintet NGC number is? I guess I could probably while that's forming, let me just go out to the internet and take a look here. Okay, so Stevens, and of course this is the one thing that you you invariably don't have when you're doing outreach, is the ability to hook onto the so 7318B. So obviously I had the right NGC number, and we're looking at I knew we were looking for 4 galaxies in a fairly tight formation here, and it's pretty obvious where those galaxies are. So okay, let's drop out of that and go back to our view, and these are obviously where the galaxies are, so let's take a little bit of a closer look. Okay. Yes. Yep, I think we're going to have to go. Yeah, pretty weak target. I am really chancing my arm here. We can definitely see the galaxies. but we're not going to see much detail at all. Yes, Mike, I am yes, whoever asked the question, Curtis, I am using an AVX, that's correct. And it's a pretty tired AVX as well. I completely rebuilt the deck axis the other day, and yeah, it's getting a little bit old, but it's good for EAA. I can't get the thing to track with PhD guiding to at all. There's just too much backlash and stuff in it. So again, you know, when I'm setting up for EAA here, this is why I tend to just stick to one side of the meridian, because I have the OTA balanced such that it's being pulled by the weight, so it's not neutrally balanced. It's slightly heavy, which causes obviously the backlash to be kept at a minimum because the weight is just doing that. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a huge amount here, but again, you know, obviously the possibility exists, and if we were under a better cloud condition or better sky conditions, if I had perhaps a different filter in here, if I was imaging up into the near IR or not having the cut filter in, I could probably get a better image. But I mean, you can tell the galaxies are there, but you can't really see too much beyond that. But again, you know, this is a constant learning process, so we go from there. So it's now 10:28. If you decrease the red by a tick or two, followed by the blue, should help with the histogram. Okay, let's try that. Click or two. Okay, yes, thank you, Corey. Thank you. That did help. That is a little better. Just push that a little across now. Yeah, okay. I got a little bit more there. That helped. Maybe if I just scoot over there. Okay, I'm increasing my noise, but again, you know, it's not it certainly helped with the histogram. Okay, and as Corey pointed out, trying to get the balance on the histogram right can have a big effect sometimes. Other times it has no effect at all, or well, it doesn't have much of an effect, but for this particular target, it clearly does have an effect. But yeah, not too bad. So we're at 10:30. Let's just finish off with one more target, and go from there. So let's see what is kicking around here. I don't really want to go down onto Andromeda because I think we've probably all seen enough of Andromeda to last a lifetime. And I think what else is around here at the moment? Got M30 over there. Let's take a look down at M76. I can't exactly remember what M76 is, but let's finish off with a Messier target. Hopefully it's not an open cluster. And if it is, my apologies, maybe I'll pick one more target. Because I do find that open clusters don't really image so well, particularly with the, you know, I like the spikes that you get with the Newtonian if you're imaging that type of thing, whereas all I get is blobs, but that's fine. All right, so is the fireworks up? That's the fireworks galaxy, right? I think I might have tried. It might be. Oh, all right. Oh, so this must be another planetary nebula. I'm guessing from that. Yes, that's got to be some sort of planetary nebula here. Right. Oh, going the wrong way, Gary. Slide it back. Okay, yeah, so what do we have here? So is this the, is this a little dumbbell? Yeah, small planetary nebula. Okay, thanks, Dave. Know that you're more familiar with these things than I am. Just zoom in a little bit. Okay, not a great image at the moment. And actually, it's kind of unusual because for a planetary nebula, they usually image a little bit better than this is doing at the moment. Let's give it a little bit of time. Just let it build for a second here. Might get a little better. But normally the planetary nebulas do actually image quite well. And of course, being a Messier object as well generally indicates that it should be pretty good. So yes, so this is the little Dumbbell nebula. And what we will be seeing here is a very strong rectangular type core with red ends. And on the outside of that, we've got a much, much weaker um, um, gaseous emission going out in more of the circular shape. Yeah, so we can see the central star right here. So we can see that. Let's just give this a few minutes to form. So this is actually an 8-inch scope running at f6.3. I'm using the Celestron focal reducer, the the times 0.63 focal reducer directly behind. So that takes me from f10 down to f6.3. And I still haven't quite got used to pressing the shift and then moving the slider. I kind of think it's stopped moving, but it just moves so slowly that um, I just have to get used to it. Okay, so now we're just beginning to see the outside detail in a little bit more here. You can see it here. We're pushing the background noise up, which is a shame. I can probably make it look a bit better by dropping back a little bit. If I perhaps bring that black level down. I'm going to kind of lose the detail. But probably pushing this too hard at the moment. Let's see. Where should I go here? But I am kind of struggling here with the background noise and trying to maintain. That certainly allows me to see a little bit more of the, well, it certainly allows me now to see the central star because it's right here, but I'm losing the detail here now. So it's not the greatest of images, but it is, yeah, it's not the greatest of images. So Chris had said you might want to go lower in focal length. Yeah, the problem is the C8, C6 really, either one, you can, well, particularly we're using the sensor that I'm using, which is the 533, which has a imaging circle of about, it needs an imaging circle of about 15, 16 millimeters. If you go any lower, you end up with a lot of vignetting. I do have a Mead 0.3, times 0.33, but if I put that on, it really is not pleasant. There's a lot of vignetting, and I can correct for it to some degree in the flats, but it's not the best. If you really want to use the 0.33, you have to drop down to using the something like the 224, but of course, then the 224 is only 1,000 by 1,000, so your field of view drops by a factor of 3 anyway. So, I mean, you don't really gain anything. Um, but anyway, yeah, so this is kind of, I think, about as far as you would push, or certainly with this sensor, you would push the either a C6 or a C8. If you want to go for more wide field, then you probably need a different OTA um, than what I'm using. The reason I like the C6 or the C8 is because I can go literally from planetary imaging at f20 down to down to EAA at 6.3. It's a really versatile scope. Whereas if you've got a RAS, it's great for doing wide field EAA, but that's all it does, right? I mean, it's a wide field EAA machine, and it does it beautifully if it's set up right. But it's not very versatile. Okay, and yes, I love the 553. I've been really the 533. I've been really pleased with it. It's it was available, as everybody knows. There's quite a shortage of kit availability. I was kind of a bit dubious about the square format, but I'm kind of getting used to it now. But yes, it seems to be a really good sensor, and a lot of people are beginning to use it and seem to really like it. So, and it doesn't have the amp glow that the earlier ZWO sensors have got. It doesn't need blacks. I can shoot without flats if I really, without losing much. So yes, I'm pretty pleased with it. Okay, so I think we're not going to get this much better than what we've got. It's not fantastic. So I'll just save that and put it away in my box of tricks. Um, and the night owl reducer can go to f4, but yes, as you said, lots of money. And one of the things, and this is an interesting question, one of the things that I like about particularly the C6 is if you take a C6 with a focal reducer and an AVX mount or one of the other cheap mounts, you actually have a really good cheap system. Secondhand, you can put it together for $1,000. I mean, if you use it with a 385 sensor rather than what I'm using it with, which is quite expensive, it's a fantastic budget EAA system. And for that reason, I really do have some affection for the C6. I'm not 100, I've only really just stepped up to the C8 recently, and I'm still not 100% sure whether that was the right choice, but the C6 belongs to somebody else anyway, so I guess it's got to go back to its home. Right, so we've now gone past 10:30, and unbelievably, there's still 12 people online. So thank you very much for continuing to participate. I hope you guys have enjoyed the evening. I think we'll probably stop there. Give me a chance to relax and um, tear the equipment down. Although to be honest, my equipment teardown is fairly straightforward because I leave the mount outside. The California weather is pretty good for that, and I actually put a little Portaloo tent over it just to keep the dust and everything off of it, so I don't have to do polar alignment every time, only when I move it. But really enjoyed being with everybody again today. I am glad to have been able to share these views of the skies from Southern California. And I look forward to the next time that we can get together for another live streaming event. I'm hopeful that I can actually do one from TDS, which is our dark sky or darker sky club site. I haven't yet looked at all the logistics for that, but it would certainly be a better imaging site, although it is, I must admit, very convenient to be here. And I must admit, I've had a glass of Merlot in the background here as well while we've been talking. So anyway, I won't witter on anymore. Thanks everybody for joining this evening. I look forward to the next time we have the opportunity to do another live stream event, and I'll catch up with you all again soon. Many on the Cloudy Nights forum board. Okay. Good night, folks. I'll close the stream down, and we'll go from there. Have a great evening. Enjoy the weekend. Bye.